Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me, as always, is Mark Souza. We got some good bits to talk about in the world of the NFL, such as the Oakland Raiders, or should we call them the Las Vegas Raiders prematurely, or should we just keep calling them Oakland?
Still Oakland.
For now, anyway. We don't even know if they're going to be in Oakland for the next season. And we're going to be talking about them, and if there's actually kind of rumblings around of them maybe drafting Kyle Murray and getting rid of Derek Carr. So that's a big question in the world of football. We also have some other things to talk about, like Ben Roethlisberger's contract extension talks are ongoing. And even 2020 Super Bowl odds that have already been dropped. And maybe we will talk about the Jets jerseys that were leaked not too long ago. And, no one really likes them, so we'll talk about that later. But first, we got to talk about the Oakland Raiders. John Gruden has praised Kyler Murray in recent days.
At the Senior Bowl.
Yes, at the Senior Bowl. And he looks to me like he might want to draft him. I don't know, because it seems to me like Derek Carr is gone from that Derek Carr is not what John Gruden wants as his quarterback.
Maybe.
Well,
what did Gruden say about Kyler Murray?
I don't know his exact quotes. Do you?
Yeah, he said that Kyler Murray has basically made him forget about prototype quarterbacks and what he thought about what a prototype quarterback is. That was essentially what Gruden was saying. He gushed over Kyler Murray about his ability.
Aww.
And his ability to thrive at the next level. So with that being said, some people are now wondering if the Raiders will actually consider taking a quarterback with that first of their 3 first-round picks and replacing Derek Carr. So the question now becomes, if they do that, they can do that. They do have the ability because there is an out in Derek Carr's contract. The Raiders can walk away from Derek Carr and pay, I think, $10 million over the next 3 years in dead space, but that's not a lot when you consider what they owe him for the next 4 years.
So when Gruden was talking about prototype quarterbacks, I mean, look at his quarterbacks in the past before he retired. His Super Bowl winning quarterback was Brad Johnson. And then in Oakland, it was Rich Gannon. And then it was Chris Sims.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's not really a who's who. I mean, one of them was an NFL MVP, but that was after he left. And so it's basically a who of who's when it comes down to his quarterbacks he's coached. Derek Carr, I don't know if he's under that category yet, but would you consider him in the disappointment category already, or would you say like not full potential?
I don't know, but I think he has like three Pro Bowls now for Derek Carr, which is interesting.
Well, when it comes down to it, a lot of Pro Bowlers are replacements for guys that backed out or coming off, like wanting to rest themselves off injuries or are in the Super Bowl. So I always take Pro Bowl with a grain of salt.
Okay. But when it comes down to it, when we talk about, like, when guys are trying to enter the Hall of Fame, what do we talk about? How many Pro Bowls did he make? How many Super Bowls did he win? You know, that's kind of like the first two things that are asked. So,
I mean, you could say, oh, I'm a 5-time Pro Bowler. No one's really going to care. They'd be
What
like,
do you
"Oh,
mean?
that's." It's like
A lot of people would care.
I personally would be like, that's not really an
Well,
accomplishment.
this is not about you personally. It's about people. People care about that stuff, right? It's how people get big contracts. It's how people make It's how people make Hall of Fames. It's how people's legacies are remembered, right? When a player retires, like Jerry Rice, for example, they'll say, "Oh, he won this many championships. He made this many Pro Bowls. He was many times All Pro." Before they start listing off how many touchdowns, how many. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about the accolades. And, yes, I understand what you're saying. And nowadays, a lot of players make the Pro Bowl because players decide to sit. Players, after a few times they don't want to participate. They would rather enjoy a vacation. I understand what you're saying. But Derek Carr, to date, has 3 Pro Bowls. So it's hard to say he's been a complete disappointment.
Oh, I'm not saying that at all. He had a great season one year for the Raiders that if he didn't get injured, who knows what they could have done that year. Mm-hmm. And you know the year I'm talking about when he was
even a Pro Bowler last year.
Connor Cook was the quarterback for that playoff team of the Raiders. That's their last appearance. But, I mean, Pro Bowl last year, let's see. In the AFC, I'm pretty sure Tom Brady was supposed to be the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Who else would have been called and said, "Hey, can you just be quarterback in this Pro Bowl game?" Mm-hmm. That's why I always say,
Well, last year, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers made it, and then Alex Smith and Derek Carr were the alternates that made it. So
he was an alternate.
Yeah. So he was one of the 5 quarterbacks in the AFC.
Okay, I guess, but debatable. Anyways, with John Gruden, if John Gruden does go after Kyler Murray, this will probably be the most talented quarterback he's ever had. But
possibly.
But the main possibly. But the main question concerns me is, does he know how to use him to his fullest? Does he know how to coach a quarterback like that?
I honestly have no idea what John Gruden wants to do. Based on his history, based on what we know of him as a coach, you talked about some of the quarterbacks that he has coached, and those players do not appear to look anything like Kyler Murray. However, we also must talk about how the NFL is a lot different now than when Gruden coached, because even though he was out of football for a short time, he was in the booth, but still, the 10 years that he was not coaching football, a lot of things have changed. Guys like Drew Brees have put their mark on this league. Yes, he was a quarterback when Gruden was also a coach, but the last 10 years, Drew Brees has elevated himself from really good quarterback to slam dunk Hall of Fame quarterback. And then you look at a guy like Russell Wilson, who has made his mark on this league after Gruden left the Buccaneers. So the idea that a quarterback under 6 feet tall could thrive maybe wasn't something that Gruden thought about in his first run as a head coach in the NFL. But certainly, not just Gruden, but a lot of people are now open to the idea of a shorter quarterback, a different-looking quarterback being a franchise player now. So with that being said, maybe John Gruden is being genuine when he says, I don't know what a prototype quarterback is anymore, or my idea of a prototype quarterback is now changing. What do you think about that? Do you think might be genuine there, or do you think this is lip service, a guy who, because let's remember, he did the quarterback camp stuff on ESPN, so he's known for talking up these young quarterbacks. His spiel for the last 10 years, other than commentating during football games, was
praising quarterbacks.
Yeah, and breaking them down, meeting with them, being an ally to them, right? He wasn't.
When he meets the quarterback, it's rare you see him display him. He's always going to this great play he did, and goes "What did you do here? How did you think of it?"
And even when they talk about maybe a weakness or a bad play, it's always
it's a minor.
It's
one.
always but it's always so how are we going to fix this, right? It's always in a positive attitude.
Yeah. It's softball questions that.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So is this John Gruden, the coach, talking, or is this John Gruden, the analyst, talking?
Maybe they're morphing into the same person. They're fusing.
It does make it interesting too. I will point this out that Mike Mayock is now the general manager for the Raiders. Now, say what you want about him and have your opinions on if you think it's a good move or a bad move, but regardless, Mike Mayock is very close to the college game. Like, that's his thing. Evaluating college players is his thing. So Mike Mayock, I'm sure, has seen the trends in the NFL from college. He seems to be a general manager that will be more keen to the way the game is changing just because he doesn't really spend a whole lot of time on the NFL. His focus is majority college football. So maybe the mix there has the Raiders thinking differently than what we thought John Gruden would think.
But that concerns you, not draft-wise, because he can scout draft picks extremely well, no doubt about that. But when it comes down to free agency, when it comes down to signing players, is he qualified to be general manager?
Well, the thing is that Gruden is, first and foremost, let's be honest.
He's the top guy.
We have to, let's just go down to the bare bones here. John Gruden is the decision maker for the Oakland Raiders. Like, that's fact, set in stone, $100 million contract, period. Mike Mayock, sure, he's a general manager, but he does not have more power than Gruden. But Gruden's forte, his strength is the NFL game. His strength is evaluating NFL players. Now, we don't know if that means that he's going to make the right free agent signings or anything like that. But what we know about John Gruden is that, yes, he studied those quarterbacks in college, but he didn't spend a lot of time studying college. Mm-hmm. Whereas Mike Mayock, his whole livelihood for the last 10 years has been draft.
Is he just a promoted scout in your mind?
Well, the thing is that I understand the duo. You have Gruden, who is likely going to make decisions on free agents, on who to sign, who to release, who to extend, things like that. And then you got a guy like Mayock, who I think is going to be heavily, heavily draft-oriented, college-oriented. Hey, we're going to go watch these college teams play. We're going to study this college film. Not that other GMs don't, but other GMs will have more of a mix, in my opinion, of NFL.
So that's the general manager's job.
Right, exactly. And they delegate those things too.
And now Gruden and him are kind of splitting that.
Right.
In reality, Gruden is half general manager and full head coach.
Yeah, I mean,
and Mayock's got the other half, the general manager spot.
If we're being completely honest, John Gruden is president of the Oakland Raiders. Like, he has the CEO above him, Mark Davis, and then from there on, it's Gruden that's going to make the decisions on.
You think Mark Davis is making decisions? No way.
Well, Mark Davis is the owner. I mean, he is making decisions.
Well, I mean, he trusts. He gave the.
He's trusting
what I'm
Gruden
saying
to be
is
the
he
football
gave.
guy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He gave Gruden the 10-year contract to handle everything football oriented. Mm-hmm. And that's like finances. That's all Mark Davis, sure. But whatever it takes for Gruden to give him a winning team heading into Vegas, he's going to let him do it.
Yeah. So, do you see the Raiders actually flirting with the idea of drafting Kyler Murray if he's available to them at their pick? I think their pick Raiders have been the
Raiders have been infamous for these weird draft picks in certain situations. So I would be like, okay, sure, that's that. I can see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, remember they drafted Sebastian Janikowski in the first round.
I do.
They drafted Ray Guy, the punter, in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
They drafted Davis Harrod-Bay.
Janikowski was actually a decent draft pick.
But you easily could have got him in the 5th round or 6th round.
Maybe. We don't know that. But
you did not need to waste a first-round draft pick. No way is a kicker going first round, regardless.
I'm not arguing with you, but Janikowski lived up to it. He
did great.
He wasn't a terrible player.
I'm just saying that they've tried to be kooky with it before. And I know that's
draft
with Al Davis.
In the 2nd round, maybe not as high as the first, but we have to admit that Janikowski was kind of a freak of nature when he was not just your normal, let's just pick this college kicker. The dude had a tremendous leg in an era where now a lot of kickers can kick as far as Janikowski, but back then no one could. He definitely had the biggest leg.
I say they could have got him in 2nd round, probably, maybe even the 3rd, honestly.
When was he drafted? What year?
2004?
Before that, I believe.
Was it even earlier than that? 2002? It was early 2000s. I'll look it up.
So you were 5 years old when he got drafted.
I would have been 9.
He didn't get drafted in 2004. I'm pretty sure.
I'll look.
He's 40 years old.
My God, he's old. Drafted in 2000.
Yeah, you were 5.
Yeah, I was 5, yeah.
So how did you know he could have got picked in the 2nd round?
Because who would
You were 5 years old walking around saying,
who would
"That's a
draft
bad pick."
who would draft a kicker in the first round in 2000? No one.
The Bears.
That's a low blow.
What? You don't think the Bears understand the importance of having a quality kicker?
It's too soon to talk about.
How about the Rams? Greg Zuerlein is a beast.
Yeah, they're fine right now.
What
They
about
don't need
Justin Tucker? He's worth every bit of a second-round pick.
Yeah, so I never said not. I said maybe second round, but not.
He's worth the first-round pick. Justin Tucker? You kidding me?
I would. I'm
Kickers
not.
are way more important than people give them credit for.
Yeah, but
everybody
I'm
talks
sorry, I'm
trash
not
about the
wasting-
kicker until their season's on the line.
The most I would spend on any kicker is a second round pick. I'm sorry. No, when he's on the field, not as often as
all right.
anybody
What
else.
if you'd spend a second-round pick? Why wouldn't you spend a first? Is all I'm saying. Like, what's the difference of like a 5 to 10 selections? You know?
there's been a huge difference in that matter.
Well, I'm saying, like, if you'd pick a kicker in the second round, then why wouldn't you pick a kicker in the first round? That's all I'm asking.
First round talent and second round talent are two completely different things.
I don't know about that because we know every year we hear scouts say this is a 15-player draft, and then there's a drop-off in that, and then that's why you see teams draft trading back because they don't see big differences between picks like 20 to 50.
Okay, I'm going to just name you play. Okay, I'm just saying that I'm not wasting a first-round draft pick on a kicker. I don't care who it is, but I'm not going to do that.
I understand what you're saying. I totally get it.
It's the first-round draft pick is going to be someone I desperately need.
You
never desperately need a kicker.
I'm just simply asking, if you'll spend a second, why wouldn't you spend a first? Let's say pick 45 to pick 31.
If I'm that late in the draft, then maybe I'll consider.
Well, the Raiders didn't spend a top 10 pick on Janikowski. They
it was
picked
17.
Mm-hmm.
It was midway. That's still pretty high in my all things considered.
And
that's
at the time, the Raiders were really good.
Yeah, and after Janikowski was picked, Chad Pennington was picked, Sean Alexander was picked, Ahmad Plummer was picked. A lot of good
Ahmad
talent.
Plummer was definitely not as good as Janikowski.
Well, I'm just he had some good games here and there. I'm just naming them out there. But there
are some players picked in front of him that he was better than, for sure. There's players picked after him that I'm pretty sure were better than him too. You know?
But
I'm just defending it a little bit because he wasn't a bad pick. Now, everybody made fun of them at the time, but it actually ended up being a pretty good draft pick. Now, you can laugh and say, "Oh, who drafts a kicker in the first round?" But
honestly,
it wasn't a disaster.
If the Browns drafted him instead of Courtney Brown, then I'd be like, okay, fine.
What about when the Bucks drafted Aguayo from Florida State in the second round like 2 or 3 years ago, and then they cut him because he was terrible? Like,
my point.
Now, that was a terrible pick, but Janikowski wasn't a terrible pick at pick 17.
Okay, true, but again,
Aguayo couldn't make anything. That's
it's
the problem.
too risky nowadays, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Second round picks are always risky.
I feel like all the kickers that are in their 35 or older are the best kickers. So that's like I'm not going to draft one that's young. I'm going to wait till they're old.
Mm-hmm.
Like out of Vinatieri's age is where I'm going to pick a kicker.
Although Vinatieri had a rough last outing.
I'm not, regardless of that, he's had a pretty amazing. He's
had
a Hall of Fame.
Let me ask you this.
Continue.
If the Patriots knew how good Vinatieri was, would they have picked him in the first round?
No, not the first
They
round.
would have.
No,
for sure.
Okay, if they looked in their time machine and
he
said,
made a lot of big kicks for them, man.
Yeah, but
you can pretty much
you
say
are
that,
really overpricing kickers, in my opinion, right now.
So you can pretty much give them their first Super Bowl. Give Vinatieri their first Super Bowl.
You do know he was on that team in their second Super Bowl appearance, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 1997.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm saying when they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, when they won. I thought you said when he was given
Tuck
a
rule game.
trial.
He kicks the field goal in the snow. Then they beat the Rams. He kicks the game winner as time expires.
Mm-hmm. I'm not taking that away from him.
Vinatieri, I mean, most clutch kicker in the history of NFL.
Pretty sure if he was in like the 95 draft, 94 draft, something very and he was undrafted because he came out of South Dakota State, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So he was not like Janikowski coming out of Florida State, but still, I have to say that I think that's overpricing a kicker. I want someone that's going to be on the field most of the game.
Right. But the fact of the matter is that yes, these players are not on the field for most of the game. They're not usually on the field for 3 or 4% of the entire game. But the fact is, the difference of how good teams are in the NFL is so slim that the difference of having a good kicker and a bad kicker can mean you winning a Super Bowl and you not winning a Super Bowl.
I have a good counter to this.
Okay.
I don't want to have to pick a kicker in the first round because I don't want to have to put my kicker in a game time situation where the game's on the line. I want a team that can just win the game without having to require a kicker to win.
Yeah, but no one does that. No one can do that.
Why can't they?
What do you mean? If you win a Super Bowl, again, let's talk about it. The best team to the worst team in the NFL is very slim. Most games are won by 3 points. Most games are won by 7 points or less, right? So, like, okay, let me ask you this. In the Patriots Super Bowls, what have they all been similar about all of the Patriots Super Bowls wins and losses? They've all been decided by, like, 7 points. Right?
Are you okay? You just slammed your hand on the...
No, I touched it.
I thought it looked like you hit your knuckles. They look gross.
Every Patriots Super Bowl has been super close. Has come down to a kick, a
Super Bowl
play.
being super close.
I mean,
it's true.
It's true. So I'm saying, like, I understand what you're saying. You want a middle linebacker. You want a quarterback. You want a wide receiver in the first round. I get it. But, like, if I told you this kicker for the next 15 years will be the best kicker in the NFL, I think that player would be picked in the first round every single time. I don't know. I'm not saying top 5. I'm not saying top 3.
If I was in 20 or higher, I would consider it.
Like if you're
I'm not. If I'm 15 or below, no. 20 or above, yes.
Yeah. Anyways,
because then, yeah. Anyways, we're just gonna move on.
No. I want to talk about Derek Carr because he apparently wants to fight Max Kellerman because Max Kellerman...
Didn't he also want to fight Stephen A. Smith?
It was their show, but Max Kellerman's the one that he really went off on.
Max, he rips the Raiders new one every time they talk about him. Mm-hmm. He's Skip Bayless, just a little more mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Derek Carr a little flustered. He's normally level-headed. Maybe he's starting to feel the heat a little bit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's getting to him.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to say, if you're a Raiders fan and the Raiders decide to part ways with Carr after we just saw them trade Cooper, we saw them trade Mack, and a lot of the reasons why they traded Cooper and Mack was because maybe John Gruden didn't feel like spending that much money on one of those players, like especially Mack, for example. Would that bother you if they decide not to walk away from Derek Carr when they could have just paid Mack less money than they're paying Carr, but then they choose to walk
as
away
a
from
fan,
Carr?
I'd be furious.
Like, what is the point? That's what I would want to know. Like, it kind of felt like they chose Carr over Mack, but now it feels like they might not.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
In this scenario, yes, I agree with you. But because of the draft spots they got for Mack and Cooper, it looks like it's a dumb decision at the moment. But what if those two teams didn't make the playoffs and they're both top 10? So they have 3 picks that are top 10.
I still don't think it was worth those trades.
Even if it's
Khalil Mack is worth 3 first-round picks, in my opinion. The dude is the biggest game wrecker in the NFL.
I'm just saying 3 first-round picks.
I'd rather have Khalil Mack.
Top 10.
I'd rather have Khalil Mack.
Okay.
What's the saying? A bird in hand is better than 2 in the bush, right?
Excuse me?
A bird in hand, right? Isn't that the saying? A bird in hand is better than 2 in the bush. Like, what what you have in Khalil Mack. Why would you?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Why would you even take the risk? Khalil Mack was better than a first-round pick.
My brain went a little dirty.
So Jeff, even if Khalil Mack was the number 1 pick overall in a draft, he would be worth more than that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, sure, could the Raiders hit 3 home runs? I guess. They could. It's going to be hard. They could do it. They're hoping they'll do it. They're trusting themselves that they'll do it. But we saw Amari Cooper ball out of control with the Cowboys. And Amari Cooper had Dak Prescott, who may or may not be an upgrade at quarterback over Derek Carr. So I don't buy the excuse that maybe the Cowboys just made Amari Cooper a great player. Like, that concerns me as a Raider fan. That would concern me as a Raider fan that I saw Amari Cooper.
I think you're already concerned as a Raider fan right now.
Yeah, that would concern me as a Raider fan that Amari Cooper went to another team, didn't know the playbook, and contributed right away, and honestly was the Cowboys MVP for the second half of the season. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. Elliott was good. Amari Cooper was the game changer.
Okay.
Anyways, we should go to break. Way overdue.
Yes, when we get back, we'll talk about
Steelers and Cowboys a little bit.
Okay, sure. We can do that when we get back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We just finished talking about kickers and also the Oakland Raiders. Now we move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers as they are now in negotiations with Ben Roethlisberger to extend him to what I'm assuming is going to be a 1 to 2 year deal. My guess, at least.
I'm sure.
That's safe to say?
I think that's fairly safe to say, yes.
Mm-hmm. And with this, it's an interesting scenario because it seemed like it was going to be the end of Ben Roethlisberger in what's the word I'm looking for?
Steelers uniform?
Yes, thank you. I don't know why that took me so long.
So you thought that he wouldn't be the quarterback any longer?
I just thought it was it's one of those things like, are they going to move on? We don't know what the actual outcome will be for Roethlisberger in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. And also, the fact of the matter is, he rubs a lot of players on the team the wrong way.
Yeah, I believe that to be true.
And that is, I feel like that should be an issue they should honestly consider.
So for the record, Ben Roethlisberger is still under contract for one more year, but they're looking to extend him. So either another year or 2 years, I'm not sure. But owner Art Rooney, or team president Art Rooney, says that he believes that Ben has some good years left, that he's still close to being in the prime of his career, according to Art Rooney. So I don't know if I agree with that, but
I don't agree with that. It's not I don't know, it's I don't.
It sounds like his deal will be restructured too. I wonder if that means they'll maybe open up a little bit of cap space and extend him, so stretch out the money over 2 to 3 years. I do not know, but it is interesting. And it is an interesting time because of the whole Antonio Brown situation. Obviously, whatever happens with this extension, I don't think matters to Antonio Brown because Roethlisberger would be the quarterback this year no matter what. But yeah, I don't know what Steelers fans think about this. The Steelers are not known to rebuild, I'll tell you that. They really don't rebuild. Like, I can't think of a time where the team rebuilt.
It's almost like they're in denial, isn't it?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Like if
I'm saying their franchise, they're the model franchise of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this team has been good pretty much every single year forever.
Refuse, yeah.
When's the last time the Steelers weren't like a decent team? Like, when's the last time have they ever gone like 4-12?
I will look.
It's got to be a long time. I don't remember them in my life being less than like 6-10.
Before their like run in the 70s, I'm pretty sure the 60s they were a laughing stock.
If that's true, then are we really going back like 60 years?
They went 2-12 in 1965.
All right.
Then they went 5-8, 4-9, 2-11, and 1-13 in 1969.
All right, so how about the 70s? We know about the 70s. What year did they start being good?
1972, they went 11-3 and lost in the AFC title game to the...
So since 1973, don't tell me each record each year. Tell me how many losing seasons that they've had since 1973.
Okay.
Since 1973.
I'm looking.
I'd say it's less than 4.
Do you count 500 as losing seasons?
Okay, 500 is a decent team. I would even say I even won.
I found one. 1986 in your fans.
What was the record?
Actually, no, 7-9. 1985 and then 1986.
They were 7-9, and I don't even consider that a bad team.
And then they went 6-10.
Okay, that one I'll give you.
And then they went 8-7, so that's fine. And then they went down to 5-11 in 1988.
So 3. We're at 3 so far.
7-9 in 1991.
Okay. That's 4.
Still looking.
4 losing seasons.
6-10 in 1999.
Okay, that's 5.
6-10 in 2003.
6.
You want to hear this? That was 2003. The next season they went 15-1.
And they won the Super Bowl, right?
No, they didn't.
Oh, they lost to the Patriots.
They lost in the AFC Championship game.
They lost to the Patriots.
What a disappointing.
All right, keep going.
10-6, 12-4, 9-7, 12-4, 12-4, 8-8. They had back-to-back 8-8 seasons. That's disappointing. And that's it.
So you just told me that they've had 6 losing seasons since 1973, and I don't count 2 of those because 2 of them were 7-9. That's what they lost by a field goal in 1 or 2 of those games, and then they could have been 8-8 easily. Like, you know what I mean? The 6-10, they had 4 seasons since 1973 under 7 wins. That's incredible. Like, that's literally incredible.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? They're a model franchise. They don't rebuild.
No, they're a model franchise. Yes, true. But I just, wow. Wait.
That's incredible. Like, that's actually insane.
Wait, is that right? They were called the Steagles at one point.
The Steagles. Is that why there's the Steelers and the Eagles now?
The Steagles was the team created by the... Oh, it's a temporary merger of the Eagles and Steelers. Okay, it was for one season, 1943. I got really confused because it said Steagles. I'm like, the hell is that?
What year was that?
1943.
No. Okay.
That was during the time where everything was like, no one gave. And that was also during World War II. So that's probably why they had to merge, because they lost some players to the war. But yeah, that's all their losing seasons. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the Patriots, who everyone thinks is this dominant team. In their seasons, they've had some putrid seasons.
Mm-hmm.
They had a 1-15 season at one point. You know what year that was? Want to guess what year that was? No. It was 1990. So it wasn't that long ago. Not as like the Steelers in like 1-13 in 1965.
Speaking of the Steelers, though, Marquise Pouncey and Juju Smith-Schuster are confident that Brown will be back. They talked about that things happen, but nothing that a conversation can't overcome. What do you think about that? Do you think Antonio Brown and the Steelers can be reconciled, or do you think that this marriage is over?
It's so hard to tell. There was a tweet earlier today by Antonio Brown that says it's open for business, so who knows what that actually means. But also, you got to look at the facts that maybe this is just not a good relationship for both the team and Antonio Brown. Mm-hmm. Because it feels like it is dividing the locker room, doesn't it?
I mean, I think...
Or do you think it's...
I think that this marriage can be reconciled, honestly. I'm not saying it will be, but I don't think that anything has happened where it's like we have to get rid of this guy. I think the Steelers would like to move on. I think they would like to trade him and see what they can get back. It certainly helps that they have another really good receiver already on the team. It also helps that they drafted a receiver last year, James Washington. That's a position that they're not lacking of talent.
So you think he's expendable?
Well, I think that if you're the Steelers and you can get a couple really high picks for Antonio Brown, wouldn't you love to maybe boost other parts of the team? Maybe your secondary, for example. Maybe
But-
your offensive line. Maybe I don't know. Antonio Brown's a great player, but Juju Smith is a really, really good player too. Juju Smith-Schuster is a Pro Bowler.
True.
You really don't need 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers. I mean, I'm not saying that you don't want to, but you can use that asset and maybe boost another part of your team that could really use some attention. Maybe linebacker. They were really hurt by the loss of Ryan Shazier. Like his injury really hurt their team. Like, I mean, obviously this goes beyond football. We care more about the dude's health than we do. But regardless, on the field, they became a worse team without Ryan Shazier. Undoubtedly, right?
Yeah.
Secondary. Steelers secondary, man. It's been a problem for 15 years, I feel like. Like, that's always their weakness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's always been their problem. That's always been their Achilles heel. Their defensive line got a little bit better. Watt has been a great addition to their team. I feel like they can rush the passer, but you could always use another pass rusher. Now, there's a position where you can always use more of pass rushers.
Yeah.
I'd rather have 1 Pro Bowl wide receiver and 2 Pro Bowl pass rushers than 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers and 1 Pro Bowl pass rusher. Would you agree with that?
I would say it depends on the head coach. If they're an offensive-minded head coach, I might want those 2 wide receivers because who would utilize them?
But if you're an offensive-minded head coach, can you get more out of some lesser players?
True, but I would rather give him the best talent he can use. But I do agree with you the fact that maybe defense is more touted when it comes down to it than offense when it comes down to nitty-gritty. Look at the Chiefs, for example.
Yeah, the Chiefs have really 1 really good receiver, and even Tyreek Hill.
Oh, I wasn't even talking. I was just talking they had an amazing offense, but they lost because of their defense.
A guy like Sean Payton, Sean McVay, I think like Sean Payton for sure has 1 good wide receiver. Like Michael Thomas.
Yeah,
they
who's
got
Ted Ginn,
Tre'Quan Smith. Those are just guys. Those are just dudes in the NFL, Anyways, how about we talk about another wide receiver who may or may not be a diva, who I never thought would have been, but Cole Beasley, man. Cole Beasley calling out the Cowboys front office, saying that there's a lot of politics involved when it comes to who gets the ball as a wide receiver. He talked about during 2-minute drills how he's Dak Prescott's preferred target because that's where the game is not scripted. That's where where you're just playing football, and the players with the best connection, or when it hits the fan, who's going to rise up? And Cole Beasley says, that shows that he's actually should be getting the ball more. Do you agree with his comments? Do you think that he was right to say these things?
Well, you can't tell if someone's right or wrong. Because, this is an opinion-based situation. Mm-hmm. This is an opinion-based rant. And you can also look at the facts that he's frustrated with the team because, like he said, he only gets the ball during the 2-minute drills when there's no plan. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing with a lot of teams. A lot of front offices, really say focus on so-and-so.
He's a free agent. Do you think the Cowboys will bring him back?
After this rant, I would, or would you even call it a rant?
I mean, you had some things
quote
to say.
unquote rant. Mm-hmm. I will say that it's very questionable.
Mm-hmm. All right. Why don't we take a break? When we come back,
sure.
We're going to talk about 2020 Super Bowl odds. It's still weird to say 2020, but we'll talk about Super Bowl odds of next year, and also
it's weirder to say 2020.
We'll talk about who may be the next defense coordinator of the Chiefs. We'll talk about Eric Weddle and a legendary Hall of Fame player coming back for one more season. We'll talk about those things when we return.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Football Podcast. We just finished talking about the Steelers and their situation with Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown. But now, let's move on to looking into the year 2020, which is actually next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at Super Bowl odds. And so I'm going to ask you, Mark, and who do you think is the team with the least amount of odds, the lowest possible team?
Lowest odds of winning the Super Bowl next
like
year?
You pay like $5, you get a huge reward for this, in theory.
I'm going to say that the team with the worst odds is the Arizona Cardinals.
They are not. They are plus 10,000.
Where are they? How many teams below them?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8.
There's 8 teams with worse odds than the Cardinals.
Well, a bunch of them are tied with the Cardinals, but on the list they are below.
So how many are actually below the Cardinals? On the list?
Like in numbers, 2.
Okay.
The rest are.
So there's 6 teams
there's
that
6
all
teams
kind of have
with
the same.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Exact same.
Man, that's kind of tough. I'll say.
I don't think you're going to get this because I think you forgot about them, and I forgot about their situation as well.
Carolina.
No, they're actually. Where were they? I saw them. They're plus. I think they're plus 5,000.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty low then, right?
Somewhat.
Who could be worse? I only said Carolina because of the fear that Cam Newton wouldn't play. I mean,
absolutely.
If that was the case.
This team kind of admitted their defeat already.
Oh, it's Miami.
Yep. 30,000.
Yeah.
Don't bet on the Dolphins.
Is it really 30,000?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
You read it for yourself.
This is weird.
Yeah. I just showed him the proof. And the number one team is the Rams at plus 700, and the Chargers are plus 750. So we have both LA teams.
Chargers ain't going back. They ain't making it.
Are they playing?
That'd be a
Are they
terrible
playing
bet.
in Inglewood next season? Or is it in?
They're still playing at StubHub Center.
I thought 2020 was supposed to be when that stadium was released.
2020, 2021.
That's. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So next year's the same situation, but yeah. Wait, so the Rams and the Chargers have the best odds?
Yes.
I understand the Rams, but
The Redskins have the second lowest odds at plus 15,000.
yeah, because they have a really bad quarterback situation right now.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring that up. But below them are the Chiefs at plus 800. Same with the Patriots at plus 800. Then it's the Colts at 1,000.
I kind of find it hard to believe that the Chiefs have worse odds than the Chargers. That's kind of funny to me.
Well, to be fair, the Chargers had one of their best seasons they've ever had.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that team looks like they maxed out on how good they could be, whereas the Chiefs are just scratching the surface.
I don't know. Maxed out is the right word. I think they still have.
Well,
an
Phil
opportunity.
Rivers is like 38 years old. He didn't get hurt. Keenan Allen stayed healthy. I'm not saying that the Chargers can't be better next year, but the odds of them being better than they are this year are low. The odds of the Chiefs being better next year are actually really high.
This
Jeff.
sounds like we've talked about this about the Patriots.
Wouldn't you agree with that, though?
What's up?
The odds that the Chiefs could be better than they are this year for next year is actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. All they need to do is sign a couple free agents on defense or make a couple draft picks that hit on defense. That team is better. The Chiefs are already better than the Chargers, and they're going up. Their quarterback is 24 years old. Mm-hmm. Philip Rivers, I like the guy. He's awesome, but, man, I don't know. That seems like a bad bet.
I wouldn't bet on because their odds are too high, but I will say maybe give them a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Just
yeah, Chargers. I mean, they're a good team. Like, they definitely have a chance, but it's just weird that they have like you would win less money if the Chargers won the Super Bowl next year than the Chiefs. No, that seems like an easy bet to make for the Chiefs. But anyways, speaking of the Chiefs, let's talk about defensive coordinator. Man, we all know they fired Bob Sutton. Rex Ryan's name immediately came up. I don't know how.
I don't know if that's actually legit. Is it?
We do know that Steve Spagnuolo is an actual legit coordinator whose name has come up.
Well, Rex Ryan was a legit coordinator. He's just not in the NFL right now. He's an analyst.
Steve Spagnuolo was the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants when they beat the New England Patriots.
That's why he got the job in St. Louis, ironically enough.
Yeah. I think he's a good defensive coordinator.
I think he is too. Not a good head coach, but good defensive coordinator.
Right. That's an interesting name. That would bring the Chiefs some good credibility there, I think, defensively. That could pay dividends. I would like that move. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
What about Eric Weddle? He kind of alluded to that he would retire if the Ravens didn't keep him next year. Well, sounds like he's backed off that a little bit. He says he hopes that the Ravens keep him, but he sort of left the door open to play elsewhere if they don't. What do you think about that? Do you think the Ravens will keep him? He's due $7 million. He is a Pro Bowl caliber player, but he is aging and he's getting a little expensive.
Has he done anything last season that helped?
I mean, he made the Pro Bowl, so.
Was he an alternate?
I don't believe so. We're talking about a guy who's made a lot of Pro Bowls in his career, so I don't.
But I don't know. I just feel like he's hit his wall.
I mean, he's been the leader of the defense of a defense that is really good every single year. I don't know.
I guess so, but it's just when you have that guy going up in age and slowing down a little bit, he's in a position where you need to be fast.
Well, he's made the Pro Bowl the last 3 years. He's made it 6 times.
Doesn't say he's going to get it next season.
I understand that, but if you're saying he's slowing down, he's arguably playing the best football of his career, you know?
I always thought his best was San Diego. Not Los Angeles, because it actually was San Diego.
Well, I mean, he played 8 years with the Chargers. He's played 3 with the Ravens, but in those 3, he's made the Pro Bowl every time. So he made it 3 times in the first 8 years and 3 times in a row. I'm not sure, but yeah. If he leaves, where do you think he would play?
I have who? Maybe the Patriots, because they like their old stars.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What about the Chiefs? They could use a free safety. They have Eric Berry at strong safety.
Maybe.
That would be a cool pickup.
Mm-hmm.
Add some veteran leadership to a defense much needed to that defense. So I could see it happening. How about Larry Fitzgerald? He's coming back for his 16th season. What are your thoughts about that?
That's some loyalty right there.
He's 2 years older than his coach.
My God, when you're older than your coach, you should really consider coming back. Not coming back, but I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, I did not know he was 2 years older. That puts it in perspective of wow. Like, But why do you think is it just because he can't get enough for football? You think he can still play football?
I think it's all he knows, man. I think that he's just a dude who loves the game. He grew up around the game. What can you say? Like, he's been doing it his whole life. I think it's cool. I think it's funny that he's older than his coach by 2 years. But at the same time, Sean McVay just turned 33. How many players on the Rams are older than him? There's got to be a few.
There's got to be a few.
His left tackle, Whitworth, is 37 years old. So there's one.
Can you imagine, like, Tom Brady was his quarterback? He'd be almost 10 years older than his coach.
Tom Brady's got to be older than some of the coaches on the Patriots.
He's probably older than most coaches in the NFL. I'm kidding.
He's definitely Tom Brady's 8 years older than Sean McVay.
We haven't really talked about this. Do you see Brady on a coaching staff at the end of when he's done?
No, I think he'll just retire and go hang out with his supermodel wife for the rest of his years.
Yeah, I'm thinking so too. But I was just wondering what you thought about it.
He doesn't strike me as a coach. Peyton Manning strikes me as a coach.
Peyton Manning probably has already gotten asked to be a head coach of multiple colleges or something like that at least. No? Mm-hmm. Like, I could see him as the head coach of Tennessee. Or at least quarterback's coach.
I would love to see Peyton Manning as an NFL coach.
I think he'd be great.
I would hate him. I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I think it'd be cool. But if he coached college, I could see it. But I just think he's such a pro coach. Like, I don't know. I see him as like a professional coach in the NFL. I think he'd be awesome.
Yeah, maybe.
Nobody is smarter. No quarterback.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not.
No quarterback was ever smarter on the field than Peyton Manning.
But it's so hard to go from great on the field to great on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know this isn't really the same, but Wayne Gretzky tried to be a head coach.
Yes.
And he failed at that with the Coyotes. He didn't have a very good team around him, granted, but still he failed.
So most often star players are bad head coaches. And most often role players are good head coaches. If you look at history...
Well, yeah, Frank Reich was a backup quarterback.
If you look at history, Doug Peterson, backup quarterback. Jason Garrett, backup quarterback.
And people want him still can, though. I mean, well, Dallas is never satisfied.
But when you look at it, the NBA is like the perfect example. Like, look at the NBA. Larry Bird, not a good coach. Michael Jordan, like, what has he done as an executive? You know? Like, his teams are always bad. Steve Kerr. Wins championships. Phil Jackson, role player, wins championships.
I forgot he actually he was on the Blazers, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
You could just go through the list. It's like, I feel like role players can level with athletes better than star players can. Like, star players who have like this insane God-given ability. It's hard for them to coach players who are not as good as them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I guess when you're a bench player, you have the eyes of a coach because you're on the sideline a lot.
Sure, that helps. That absolutely makes a difference. You just have to know how to do the little things to be in the league. Like Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr learned, I am a three-point shooter, and if I get super good at this skill, I have a shot at being in this league. If I can't do this, I have no chance of playing in this league. Like, I can't. I'm not a defender. I'm not a dunker. I'm not a rebounder. Like, if I do this one thing super effectively, I will have a career. And
that kind of, in his one moment, kind of helped Jordan win one of these championships.
And Steve Kerr was a part of many championship teams, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he win one with the Spurs, too? Like,
just one, yeah.
Yeah. He played on a lot of good teams. But anyways, I think
he was on the three-peat. I think he was on part of the three-peat. Maybe only two.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's it for our show today.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, everybody.
Join us tomorrow.
Yes, we will talk about the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, we'll give
the most hyped
picks.
event of the year.
Yeah, Pro Bowl picks. Woohoo. Yeah.
Do we have to?
No. We really don't.
What else we got to talk about, though?
I have no idea. We'll talk about the Super Bowl.
Barely, though.
The superb owl.
I'm sorry, what?
The superb owl.
Like, that's another way of saying
I don't want to
Super
get
Bowl?
in trouble by saying Super Bowl, the big game, so we'll say the superb owl.
We're not a commercial.
Have you noticed that, though?
Yes, you told me that earlier.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot this last week, obviously. But
big game.
The big game, yeah, the big game.
You could ask them. You can ask them to pay more to get that to allow them to say Super Bowl in your commercials. No,
I think we should start calling it the Superb Owl.
I think we should not and say we did.
No,
because that sounds stupid.
Superb Owl.
I'm gonna say Super Bowl 53. You can say Superb Owl at the.
Think about how it's written.
It sounds like you have dyslexia.
Think about how it's written. Super Bowl, Superb Owl.
No, it just sounds like you have dyslexia.
All right, Superb Owl. Next week. We'll
All
talk
right.
about it tomorrow.
We'll talk about Super Bowl 53.
Superb Owl.
Oh, gosh. This is going to be the running joke for the next week, everyone, so hold on tight. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.